Good morning, everyone. Hope you're all having a wonderful day today. Today we're going to be talking about the GForce GF12 shotgun. This is a AR styled 12 gauge semi-automatic shotgun that is made in Turkey. Now I know that's going to be a downside for some of you and for me as well, as I still have not forgiven them for Constantinople, but other than that, this does accept the long boy magazines, chambered in 12 gauge, and we'll go ahead and get into all of what this is. But before we get into that, I do want to thank the sponsor of the video and the channel, and that is going to be Gun Deals. Gun Deals, if you don't know, is a website that provides you with links to the best prices in the industry. Whatever it is that you're looking for, you can probably find it on their website for the best possible price. However, they don't buy or sell anything. They don't take your money. They merely provide you with links to, again, some of the best prices in the industry depending on what you're looking for. In fact, you can find deals for this very shotgun that we're talking about right now. And on top of that, I've done a video on this firearm for them on their YouTube channel, so you can go ahead and check that out if you want to. But today we're doing the full review of the GForce GF12. If you want to help me out personally, you can of course like, share, and subscribe. All that sort of stuff is free, helps me out a ton. You can also comment literally anything down below. On top of that, there is Subscribestar, which is basically a pro to a Patreon, and we're going to be doing some very cool giveaways on there soon. On top of that, I also have some steel plates still in stock, not very many, like 12 in total I think, so go ahead and get those before they're completely gone, and that is about it. So now with all of that out of the way, let's go ahead and talk about some of the boring specifics on the firearm. The weight unloaded without a magazine in it is 8 pounds, which is fairly heavy, but again, it's a semi-automatic shotgun in 12 gauge, so more weight in this case is generally better. This one here specifically comes with an 18.5-inch barrel. I believe it has a modified choke, which is internally threaded in the end of the barrel. This is not the barrel, this is just a shroud that goes over top and locks into your handguard. We'll talk about that later. The chamber is a standard-ish chamber. It is rated for 3-inch shells, so I did shoot a lot of high brass 3-inch through this, and it took it like a champ, but you're not going to be able to fit any of your super long stuff for your crazy hunting loads, 3.5-inch magnums, all that sort of fun stuff. So 2 3/4 and 3-inch is going to be the deal for this guy. I haven't tried any of the super shorties either, though it is a semi-automatic shotgun, so you might be able to single feed it, but it's definitely not going to feed from a magazine. Now, as I did state earlier in the video, this is a AR styled shotgun, so you do have a lot of AR style controls, more like AR10, not like AR15, because it is quite a bit larger, and they do call it the AR12, I believe is the specific model, or GF12, something like that. So we have your standard safety lever, which is quite short, kind of like a gas pedal, very clicky, very positive, quite nice. On the right side here, we have a enlarged kind of magazine release that sticks out quite a bit. Doesn't have any fencing around it. However, neither magazine drops free, so even if you accidentally touch it, you're going to need to physically rip them out of the magwell to actually get them to drop. And as you probably can tell, this is of course a side charging model, so it does have a side charger that reciprocates with the bolt, much like an AK. For me, that is perfectly fine. It gives you a ton of leverage on the bolt, which can be quite useful, as AR12s, or not AR12s, semi-automatic shotguns are going to be a little bit more finicky in general than certain other firearms. So having a rear charger on it would be much more obnoxious to deal with than having this big removable charging handle that you can work on very easily. Now also, much like an AR, sorry, I gotta take a phone call. If you're looking for a sleek display option for your AR-15, then you might want to check out Print Apart of Alabama. They're offering a lightweight, high-strength polymer 3D printed mag stands that will fit a wide variety of your guns, everything from SCARs to your standard ARs. They also come in several colors and can be engraved with your name and logo without breaking the bank. For more info, go ahead and check out the website on screen and the link in the description. Thanks to Print Apart for helping support the channel. Alright, now back to the video. So it is also similar to an AR style rifle, just because it does have two separate pieces. So the lower receiver is a monolithic piece of polymer, so there is no buffer tube back here because the entire recoil assembly is contained within the upper receiver, but it does separate just like your standard AR would. Now it does use the dual takedown pin method like other AR styled guns. However, these are very tight, so I use a screwdriver to push them out a little bit, or at least get them started. The rear is not captured. It's basically identical to an HK, like an MP5 or anything like that, and then the front is captured. No idea why they didn't do a capture design on both, but just know that going in, that the front pivot pin is captured and the rear one is not. So if you drop the pivot pin, or sorry, your rear takedown pin, and you lose it, you're kind of SOL. So right here you can see this is the entire upper assembly. So here you have your charging handle, and you notice when you pull back on it, everything is self-contained within the upper receiver. So this is a large hunk of aluminum up top, and of course steel for the internals and the barrel, of course. So this is a very, very strong, very, very heavy design. This part by itself weighs about 6.5 pounds, and the entire polymer lower is very, very lightweight. Now, some people might have a problem with a polymer lower. However, there are lots and lots of guns that have done great things with polymer lowers and been very, very strong. Scars, all sorts of B&Ts, what else you got? You got CZ Brens. All sorts of guns use the monolithic polymer plastic lower, whatever you want to call it, to great success. And again, because this is not having any of the force directly applied to the plastic, I think that this is going to be quite durable. So now it should be noted, I forgot to do this earlier, but I don't have any sort of relationship with GForce, the importer, or the actual manufacturer of these in Turkey. This is actually my brother's shotgun that I've just been playing around with for quite some time now, so I don't have any skin in the game whatsoever, so these are just my unbiased thoughts on it. Now, if I haven't mentioned it already, the trigger design is mostly AR-like with a very strange hammer profile. If you guys can see it on there, it has a very strange hook style hammer. The trigger pull itself is very gritty and heavy, but overall it's just like an AR mil-spec trigger. That's just a little bit heavier. As you'll be able to see in the intro, I was still able to run this very quickly, even with a heavy gritty trigger. If I haven't mentioned already, also has your standard AR-15, AR-10 style bolt release lever right here on the side, so this will lock your bolt open on last round, and of course send the bolt home when you reload a fresh mag. Now, something that is important to mention is that though these are AR style controls, I do not know if they're compatible with actual AR components. So you're like, hey, I want to throw in a Geisley 2-stage trigger in this shotgun for whatever reason. Not sure if it's actually going to fit, or if the hammer, because the odd hammer profile, is actually going to hit the firing pin and ignite your primers. Now, something else, the only real wear component in the lower receiver, which could theoretically be a problem in the future, is that it does have the plastic feed ramps built into the lower receiver. So this is the one area that could be cause for concern. Now, again, we are dealing with just 12 gauge shells, so it's plastic on plastic. So now if this were in a gun with steel cases or with brass cases, that would be an absolute no-go, because that would just chew up the plastic very, very quickly. However, at this time in the review, we're at about 500 rounds of mostly buckshot, some slugs, some 3-inch, about 100 rounds of 3-inch steel hunting loads for like turkey and stuff like that, and then the rest of it is a good amount of some lighter birdshot that we use to test to see what it would cycle. So after about 500 rounds, there is some wear on the singular feed ramp here on the front that is plastic. You can see where some of the cases have dug into it just a tiny bit. I haven't noticed any drop in reliability, and if I had to estimate its total service life, it'd probably be around 2,000 to 3,000 rounds. Now, fortunately, the lower receiver on the GF12 is not the part that's actually considered the firearm. This is just a piece of plastic. There's no serial number. The upper is the serialized part, so theoretically, if you did have some sort of long-term issue with the feed ramp, you could theoretically get a replacement delivered straight to your door, because again, this isn't a serialized or regulated part of the gun. Now, another downside that I had to get used to is that this is a very long length of pull. This is a kind of a standard like hunting shotgun length of pull. It's like 14, 15 inches, somewhere in that range. It is quite long for normal people, or if you're used to ARs with more of like a 13-inch length of pull or something like that. It's a little bit longer than an A2 stock on an M16. So it is quite long, but once you get used to it, it's quite easy, and with its additional length, it kind of forces you to get up on the gun and to use proper recoil control techniques, so it does make it a little bit easier to shoot than if you had it choked up really tight. However, that is going to be something to get used to, and if you have really short arms or you just have trouble with bigger, longer guns, this stock is not doing you any favors, and it's not adjustable, and it is one piece, so you're not going to be able to cut it off and adjust it or do anything like that. On top of it back here, it does have a cheek riser for some reason, even though it definitely has an AR style sight height, so it's not needed whatsoever, and it's just kind of an additional piece of plastic on the rear end. Now, last thing to talk about on the lower receiver is going to be the magwell. It is Slightly cut away magwell. As you can see, it does have some material removed, but also it is very nicely beveled. Now, it is a polymer magwell, so that's very, very easy to do, but I am glad to see that they did it. However, the magwell is quite tight, so it's going to hold your magazines in. So basically, you can push that magazine release all day and it's not going to drop free. You do need to push it all the way down and then rip it out, so it does take some force to get these magazines out. On top of that, it does ship with 2 5-round magazines, and yes, they do fit in 308 mag pouches, which is quite nice. So if you want to carry a bunch of spare magazines, you definitely can. This is a 5-round magazine. This is what it ships with 2 of these guys, and then I picked up an additional 9-round magazine, which to this point, I don't have enough testing on this magazine as I just picked it up very recently, but to this point, I've only ever had one issue with this magazine, and that was with very light ammo that I've had issues with the regular magazines as well. So the 9-round magazines seem good to go, though again, I don't have enough testing on them. Semi-automatic shotguns are notoriously less reliable than other center fire guns. The reason for that is you're dealing with plastic and you're dealing with ammo that's very inefficient, and your piston system is different, whatever sort of recoil impulse that you want to go with. Now, on top of that, GForce does say that this gun does need a break-in period, which is basically running the light piston, which we have installed in the gun right now, and on top of that, running some very hot, very aggressive loads through it for about the first 100 rounds. Now, right now, in the middle of 2021, 12 gauge buckshot and 3-inch and really hot loads right now are going for around $1 a piece. So when you take in the price of the shotguns, about $400 or $500, depending on where you get it. Add another $100 at least of really hot ammo with the light piston to get it broken in, and then it should start to feed some of your less reliable ammunition. Now, we are well beyond that point. I would say I put probably 100 rounds of 3-inch, the really hot steel loads, and you'll see those are the hottest loads that I've fired through this, are the very, very high brass steel loads. Couple hundred, 200, 250 rounds of buckshot through this, half dozen slugs, not too many slugs, and also quite a bit of, lesser bird shot and stuff on top of that. And with all that being said, it has been 99.99% reliable with the hotter ammunition. With the buckshot, the only malfunction that I had with it was with a Fiocchi case not quite fully ejecting from the chamber. But that was the only malfunction that I've had with any of the hot ammunition. With the lighter loads, we're talking about Winchester white box, they're just game loads, and they're standard, like 1250, 1275 FPS stuff. You're going to be getting good reliability, though not great. And it should be noted that when we first got this shotgun, took it out to shoot it, it would not cycle anything under double-aught buckshot. From anything that we tried, it needed to be very, very hot ammunition out of the box to get it to cycle properly. And we'll show you some footage of that. Just not cycling the bolt basically at all. It would come about halfway back, wouldn't even eject the shell, and then go right back forward. So you'd have to manually cycle it. After about 100 rounds of more hot ammunition, it started to work better with lighter loads, though again, not perfectly. And then at the point that we're at now, it is very close to perfect with lighter loads, even that Winchester white box and some Estate, some very, very light just birdshot loads. It is doing a very, very good job of cycling it, though not perfect.
All right, so this ammo is not strong enough. So it is cycling, but this Estate stuff just not quite enough to lock it back. And we did have that one failure to feed that didn't quite eject far enough.
So currently my specific shotgun is in a very, very good place when it comes to reliability. It's approaching 100% reliability with hot ammunition, which is good for a semi-automatic shotgun, and it's just behind that right now with the lower, weaker powered stuff. Though again, if you're somebody who only runs hot stuff through your guns, then you're gonna have a great time with this shotgun. However, if you just wanna shoot your really cheap birdshot out of this right out the box, you're gonna have a really tough time. So take the purchase price of this gun, whatever it happens to be for you, and then add probably about $200 of hot ammunition on top of that, and then it's going to cycle whatever you want. So now let's go ahead and talk about the internals on this guy, which I think are quite good. I think that they did a very, very good job with the design of the upper receiver, and it seems to be quite durable and quite strong. So the first thing that you want to do when taking apart your upper receiver is you're going to want to take off this sleeve right here, which just threads right on and off right there. So this is just a sleeve, and there is your actual 18.5-inch barrel right there, which is of course internally threaded with that modified choke, I believe is what it comes with. Then your handguard just comes straight off just like this. Now, as you might notice on this handguard, it has a little piece of Picatinny in the rear and then a Picatinny on all of the 4 sides on front. It looks like it has M-LOK slots on it, but those are not M-LOK slots. Those are just a tiny bit of ventilation because with very aggressive firing schedules, like shooting about 100 rounds in 45 minutes, the shotgun does get a little bit hot. So as you can see, it comes with these very terrible flip-up polymer iron sights that are polymer sights that the detents on them like to just walk out under recoil, so I don't really recommend them. They're more for looks than anything else. Up front we have a Streamlight HLX, the ProTac version, and this is your handguard. Very, very simple. It indexes in the upper receiver itself, so it can't rotate left or right, and then that top sleeve just rotates down on top of it and locks it down in place. So overall, for a simple handguard design, I actually quite like it, and yes, this is a chunk of aluminum. Now right here is where all of the magic happens. This is basically your entire recoil assembly right here. So you have this big spring rides over top your barrel, you have your piston on top, your piston sleeve, and then your actual rods, which are basically just your operating rods that go back and forth. Big hunks of stainless steel on the left and right that are channeled inside the upper receiver, so it really feels like it's riding on rails. So it has a very smooth motion to it. Now if I lock this down just a little bit, you can see this is your piston right here. This is just floats a little bit inside your piston collar, which has your gas ports underneath it, and we'll take a look at that in just a second. We are using the lightweight piston. So that is the lightweight piston right here, which has a lot of lightning cuts on it and a lot of material removed. And then here is your heavy piston. Now your heavy piston is just that, it's heavier. So if you apply the same force to an object that weighs twice as much, you get like half of the velocity or something like that. So the light piston accelerates faster, heavy piston accelerates slower. We really didn't use the heavy piston all that much. It does have some wear on it, but not all that much, as most of the time we use the light piston, so it would be more compatible with more different ammunition types, since most of the times we were going out, we were using 3 to 5 different types of ammo in any given day. So having the light piston in it just meant that we could run whatever we wanted. However, if you were only running super hot stuff like that 3-inch steel shot, the super high brass, the heavy piston would be nice for that, as it would slow down the recoil impulse just a little bit. Now this might look super complicated and seem really difficult to take apart. However, it's not. It's actually very, very simple, much simpler than any AR style or AK style of gun. So this sleeve right here locks in, just screwed in place on the top. That just holds your locking rings and then your piston collar in place. So you just unscrew that very simply. No need to go super tight on it, as it just holds stuff in place. Push down on your piston assembly just a little bit. One of the locking rings fell out. So here you have the 2 pieces. They're just 2 halves of the same thing, basically 2 little half crescents that fit right here in the barrel that hold on your piston sleeve. So then your piston sleeve, after you remove all that stuff, just comes straight up off the barrel. This is literally just a sleeve that your piston slides inside so that all the gases get trapped in here, then force upon the piston, pushing it out. And then after that, the piston just comes straight out. Now there's a lot of carbon in there right now. Piston comes straight out, and now at this point, if you wanted to swap out the piston, you could absolutely just put your heavy piston straight in, no problem. So now, like I said, at this point, we could just slide our heavy piston on, which is again just a heavy piston designed for more heavy loads to soften out, slow down that recoil impulse just a little bit. Now at this point is the only point in the disassembly that you will actually need a tool. This is a little spanner wrench that they include, and you simply put it onto the flats on the barrel nut itself and then loosen up. Now you only need to torque the barrel nut until it's tight. It doesn't need to be crazy hard on there, as again this is a contained recoil system and it's pressing against itself, so there's virtually no chance of it ever coming unlocked, and even if it did, it would still be contained on the front. So it's a very, very good design that again only requires a singular tool and about 2 minutes to completely disassemble the entire system. So right about there, I think we have the barrel nut completely out. Now at that point you have your charging handle, which is kind of a problem if you want to take it out of your upper receiver. So let's see if I can do this, can't really see it, but you push down just a little bit and then pull outwards on your charging handle. Charging handle comes straight out. And now here is your, oof, ow, my foot. This is your entire barrel and recoil assembly. Now to decouple this part, which is again, this is just a hunk of stainless steel barrel nut, and then of course you have your 17.4 spring, whatever it is. So this is the heart and soul of the gun. This is what makes it run, and it's all high quality chunks of steel, which is what makes it a little bit heavier, but you're gonna need that when you're dealing with 12 gauge, theoretically very high recoil depending on your loads. Now, the only part on here that's really welded is this front where your operating rod attaches to the thing that your piston index is on. So those welds there are very, very substantial. There's no cracking, no wear marks whatsoever really on the upper receiver at all. So to disengage this, because this is still contained at this point, to push back a little bit, drop down, and now your operating rod and system comes out. Spring can be removed. Barrel nut can come off. So here is your entire barrel assembly, and here is your bolt. Now if you'll notice on the bolt, it does have a singular locking lug on the top, which is very large, very substantial. That is one of the only actual wear points on the bolt itself, and it looks very, very good. The rails on the side look very good, extractor looks good. Everything at this point is in very, very good shape after about 500 rounds, mostly very hot loads. On top of that, you do of course have your cutout here for your single extractor, and I believe it has a shark fin ejector on the inside of the upper receiver, though I could be wrong about that. And again, at this point, you totally could clean it or do whatever you wanted to do to it. However, for me, I'm just going to reassemble it. Now, something I haven't showed you yet is that the ports on the barrel, because the barrel is actually ported, it has 4 different gas ports on it, so 2 here and then 2 here, that of course, when the load goes by, the gases and everything that has pressure behind it gets fed through these 4 portholes on the barrel itself. That indexes, that forces upon your piston, trapped by your piston sleeve, and then forces down on the entire recoil assembly. Now, if you wanted to do a very, very good job cleaning this, you would definitely need to use some sort of solvent to kind of cut through the carbon that's built up around the gas ports on the barrel itself, then on your piston assembly, and then after that, it's really good to go. The other gunk that's kind of on the barrel and on some of the internals, although again, this is a piston system, so nearly all of the gunk is right here, so it doesn't really get on any of your internals. That's really the only place that you really need to clean on it to make sure that it's very, very reliable. Now let's go ahead and reinstall everything. Just do the reverse of what we just did. So you take your barrel nut, you slide it with the ratchet area on top, so of course you can actually tighten it down. Then goes your spring, and then goes your operating rod, which comes down. And then again, just like we uninstalled it to get it in place, you just bring it down at a bit of an angle, hook it up, and there you go. Now I didn't really show it to you, but on the back here we have our very large firing pin, and it is actually under spring tension, so you're not gonna have those where it slam fires or anything like that, because it is of course captured with a fairly strong spring on there. So now at this point, we can reinstall it to our upper receiver, which just slides in exactly like this, and then we just tighten this down by hand and then give it a good twist with our included ratchet. And then just take your ratchet and give it a little bit of force, not a ton, because again, like I said, you don't need a lot. So that is probably more than enough. At this point, we can reinstall our charging handle, which again, just push down just a little bit so that the holes line up, and slide it right in place. And there you have your charging handle, which cannot come out unless you force it down just to where it lines up with the hole that you pull out of. So it's very, very easy to do. Next up, we can install our piston, which in this case, we are going with the light piston. We should clean it at some point, though we're not going to do it right now. Then we have our piston sleeve, which just has a very tight fit as you would want it to. Goes down right on top of that. We have our 2 locking rings, the 2 halves of our locking ring, which can be slightly tedious to get in place, though if you're slightly mechanically competent, should not be an issue whatsoever. So go ahead, and then the sleeve goes right over top, and now they can't move whatsoever. Last piece is of course your piston sleeve retainer, which slides down over all of that. You tighten it down until it doesn't go no more, and then you're good to go. And that is the entire disassembly of the entire gun, barrel, recoil assembly, bolt, everything in about 5 minutes. And then just to finish it off, your handguard comes down and then it locks in place so it can't really wobble left and right. There is a little bit of play in there, though not much. Take your barrel sleeve, which indexes on a detent on the front of the handguard itself. Has a lot of threads on there. And you can kind of hear it there. So it has a detent that holds it in place. It should be mentioned that under very, very heavy recoil, I have had the barrel sleeve back off like one click and there was just the tiniest bit of forward back on the handguard. However, you just grab it, tighten it back down, and because it's not actually the barrel, it doesn't get anywhere as near as hot as the barrel, even after like 50 or 100 rounds very, very quickly. So here it is all put back together, and of course the action is still very, very smooth, very clean feeling. It really does feel like it's on rails because of course it is actually on rails. Just to function check it real quick, we are of course empty. Very heavy, gritty trigger like I mentioned. But again, breaks just fine. So I did mention it earlier, and of course you can probably tell by all of the shooting footage within the video, but this is a very, very fun gun to shoot. As long as you can get it to the point where it's reliable, or if you're only feeding it very, very hot ammunition, you're gonna have a very, very good time with this gun. When shooting 2 3/4 inch buckshot from several different brands, that's not crazy high brass. It is very, very pleasant to shoot. This gun does not beat you up whatsoever. Now, when you're using very, very hot loads with the light piston, I'll show you a clip that I specifically did of it. It's 3 rounds of the very, very hot steel load and then followed by 6 birdshot loads. You can tell a huge difference in recoil. It is a astronomical difference in recoil. However, with most loads, even, you know, slugs and buckshot, all that sort of fun stuff, this is a very, very pleasant gun to shoot. Currently, this is actually one of my favorite guns to shoot. It's very soft shooting for a 12 gauge shotgun. It is very, very fun, very fast, and of course it does take magazines, so I don't have to do quad loads or anything like that to try and get my reloads up. Even though you do have to rip the magazine out, I think that is a good thing because shotguns can be very, very finicky with feed angle and you're dealing with plastic ammunition, so there's lots of limitations within the platform itself. In terms of use case, one, a fun gun, a very, very fun gun, especially if you have access to enough ammunition to get it to cycle anything. Right now, if I was only running birdshot through it, it would be a super, super light recoiling shotgun. And again, just fun for shooting at clays or just mag dumping into trash in the woods. Now, on top of just being a very fun gun to shoot, I think that this could be an excellent competition shotgun if you need to use the shotgun for competition and don't want to learn how to do quad loads, which you will forget as soon as you stop running 3-gun. Then this is a good platform to do it on, and again, it is very, very similar to an AR, so all of your standard controls translate very, very well to this gun. Now, when it comes to home defense, I'm not super sold on the shotgun platform in general. I think there's a lot of smaller, more efficient platforms that get the job done just as well or much better with much higher ammo capacity in close range. You know, short-barreled AR-15s or AKs or anything like that's going to do a better job in most circumstances, easier, lower recoil, better accessory mounting, all that sort of fun stuff. And on top of that, keeping loaded plastic shells in magazines for long periods of time, they can start to deform a little bit, and so maybe you get the first shot off, but maybe it doesn't load the second shot. Again, depending on your ammunition, if you use thin-walled cases or if you use a really high-quality home defense style round, that's not going to deform on you. So there are some caveats for me personally for home defense. Now, in terms of reliability, again, it's been only had one malfunction with high quality ammunition, and that was a Fiocchi double-aught buck round, which those are very light shooting. Those are only slightly above birdshot for me. But just by the nature of being a 12 gauge semi-automatic shotgun, it is going to be more finicky depending on your specific loading. So if you are going to use it for home defense, you need to find a good home defense cartridge that is not going to deform on you over time in a magazine, and you also need to make sure that it runs 100% reliably in this gun. If you can do those things, and for whatever reason you just want a 12 gauge shotgun, mag-fed 12 gauge shotgun for your home defense gun, then this is a very cool way to do it. So that's about it for the video, guys. I do want to say thank you to all of you for watching this far in the video, and of course, big thank you to Gun Deals for sponsoring the video and the channel, helping me shoot more. On top of that, thank you to my subscribe star guys. You guys are awesome, and we're going to be doing some very cool giveaways soon. But like I said, that's about it for this video. I will see you guys in the next one. Peace out.